theme song, so I have to sing it myself.
Yeah.
I am not alone. You are not alone. We're talking wrestling on a Thursday. We got AEW tonight live with real fans. We got WWE Payback this Sunday after we just had a pay-per-view less than a week ago. We'll talk about all the big things that NXT did last night. If you haven't checked it out, we had a big post show, but we'll get more into your reactions as that news kind of settles in and develops into what could be the biggest NXT match of all time, and it's free on television. If you're with us live, go ahead and hit that like button. Go ahead and subscribe to the channels on YouTube, on Facebook, and of course in the podcast, available now on Spotify as well. I am Kevin Kelm. This is WrestleZone podcast, WrestleZone Daily, WrestleZone. You know what we're into. And I'm not alone. You're never alone when you're in the WrestleZone. They won't let me put that on a t-shirt. Pratik Savaska is with me. Pratik and I go way back in the Chicago comedy scene, bumping and feeding at the microphones. We're now washing off a microphone and then handing it over to somebody else. We're and keeping our distance. But no, Teek's got his own mic. Bring your own mic. Is that how you do with COVID and comedy times? You bring your own mic?
I'm always bringing my own mic, and I'm bringing a backup mic in case they make me touch this one, then I use the other one. You got it. You gotta be careful.
Of course, Teek doing a bunch of different comedy projects. We'll talk about that. You can follow him on Twitter at The Daily Pratik. That's Prateek. We'll get into a lot of different things going on here in the world of wrestling. Let's see if a couple familiar people join us in the chat. And if you're watching for the first time, go ahead and shout out where you're watching the show from live. If you're with us on the on-demand, hit us up on Twitter. Hey, at WrestleZone.com, and tell us where you guys listen to the show from. I'll retweet those. If you guys tweet at the show and say, hey, I listened to the podcast and I didn't agree with what you said on the show, I will retweet those at WrestleZone.com. 75,000 strong. Let's see that.
Ooh, that's valuable.
So let's get into it here. The WWE Hall of Fame. Now, this is something we'll cover a bunch of different topics. We'll talk Payback, we'll talk AEW, all that stuff. Don't worry. But the WWE Hall of Fame is kind of broke in the last hour or so. Is going to be delayed, for obvious reasons of the pandemic. And the Hall of Fame class that would have been inducted this year is going to be inducted next year, hopefully in Los Angeles, which is just more of that forecasting of what if, when, if possible, can we, we're going to use all that frame of reference. But I mean, the Hall of Fame can't happen in these COVID times. That's a formal event. Everyone's sitting down. You have a lot of older people there too. What did you think of that news that came out today just before we went live?
I think it's smart. You can't do the Hall of Fame when there's nobody around. What are they going to do? Thunderdome presents the Hall of Fame. We don't need fans on a tablet doing things. We don't want somebody's speech to be interrupted by White Klan pictures. We don't need that. No, we need to have fans there. It's great for the fans. It's great for the people being inducted as well to get that that big hometown or just big crowd from the pop from the crowd. We need that. You can't do it without fans. So I hope
But we get into the subjective stuff. We get into the subjective stuff of what is the status of WrestleMania next year. And this is something we've been talking about a lot more now. And I don't think I'm speaking out of turn if you follow where things are going, science-wise, the time frame has been put at it. We were told at the beginning of the year it would take a year to get a vaccine. Exactly. If at the earliest, the end of 2020, most likely it will come in early 2021. But the problem then becomes it isn't like we get it and it's there everywhere quickly, and then you're still going to have outbreaks of it going on. But the nice thing is it will be manageable. The problem though is if you have people that are very immune compromised in a certain area and they get hit by it, it could take them before they get a vaccine or after they get a vaccine. So or rather if they don't have one yet. So it's going to be challenging. It's going to be challenging here. Hello to a Noel watching the show from Melbourne, Australia. Thank you so much for checking out, Noel. We have a lot more people joining the podcast over there. Thank you so much. Thank you to all the Aussie fans. They've had a tough year with those wildfires, and obviously COVID is changed everything up as well. But I mean, WrestleMania, the Hall of Fame, it's a destination event. I've talked to you about the trips I've made out to WrestleMania. Oh, my phone's going off. I'm so popular.
That's a hell of an alarm.
Hell of an alarm. It's a hell of an alarm. I gotta have. It makes you wake up on time, man. That's
there you go.
But WrestleMania is a destination event. You're bringing in people, international traffic. It's a big deal. We got to know that we're in the clear by then. And the problem is you're trying to run this thing in Los Angeles. The mayor there says he doesn't want anything almost until Labor Day of 2021. Or at least they're not looking at planning events. It was internal information that he shared with the fire department that went public. Yeah. And we reported on that back in, I want to say, March or April. But things could change. Things could obviously change. And WrestleMania is a big get. And WWE's been able to pull those strings and survive in Florida and become deemed essential. So, I mean, obviously the Hall of Fame was getting a move. This is just a foregone conclusion. We don't have to dig much into that. But I think it's more just a sense of, all right, this is the long haul. We're going into the spring. What happens with WrestleMania? What happens with those major events? I would hope even if WWE could start having live events before WrestleMania, they're going to have to start doing that just for protocol, how you check people in. Because there will be this weird time between people getting vaccinated and things
There's going to be a lag time there. Yeah, it's one of those things where do you start to run live events around like the Rumble maybe in January, maybe just to kind of see, just kind of test? Do you move WrestleMania altogether and move it to Florida? We don't know. We don't know what's going to happen.
I'm of the thought, mind you, this is all hypothetical. None of this is information. If we determine that something is a report, and we'll give you some breaking information. There's some stuff we've broken recently in the last year that people didn't believe was true, like Edge. So I can tell you, none of this is just purely speculative. I have to say that because with wrestling fans, they want to say the guy at WrestleZone said this, and so I want to make this clear. I do think there's a chance WrestleMania could get delayed next year and could be like pushed into the summer, and I think that's maybe a smarter move to do because by that point as people feel better about traveling, the policy of traveling, the way people are being checked in, the medical cards that people are going to have. You're going to have validation that you've been vaccinated.
Yes.
And are we going to have a vaccine that gives you immunity for more than a certain period of time? And
right.
You have to go into all that. They're doing that in China now, so you're gonna see some things that China is doing with it. China doesn't have a vaccine, but they have big hordes of different levels of immunity there. So they've had people that have gone without an outbreak for a long, long time in specific cities. They had like you've seen the video of people like in a huge dance party in a pool or something like that.
I like that there's classifications. It's like threat levels of like, okay, you're a code blue, so you can go here. Like it's very like kind of Orwellian in a way of like you can only go here, but I think unfortunately we kind of need that. I mean, we have Chicago who's doing, which we're both based out of Chicago. They're doing like bans of if you're around surrounding states, you can't really come in. You have to like self quarantine, but it's on an honor system. How do you regulate that? You know what I mean? So maybe
you can get fined. So I mean, major cities in the United States are doing that now. Chicago is kind of following suit with it. And how do you regulate wrestlers like that if they're going to tour and stuff like that?
Like you said, it's an international affair, and we already have traveling from overseas.
And what is WWE learning from being in Florida for so long in one place that they're going to adapt to whatever this lag period is? And that makes me think, when you look at Thunderdome, there's a chance we get more of major events that are Thunderdome-esque in sense of we're going to do virtual events with more things, and this is a hit for them. You look at the numbers, they're up. Raw went up by about 600,000 people coming out of SummerSlam. Some people say whether or not it was a good show, but it went up. I mean, that's 600,000 more people watched the show. In 2020, that's 1 million people. That in terms of ratings numbers and different things like that. So, I mean, if they're looking at the things that are saying this is good, this people respond to this, they may adapt to it and continue to do Thunderdome events and say, why not? Why do we have to push this? Why push doing an event like that too? But then you look at AEW, and AEW tonight is going to be on TNT. They've been preempted by NBA basketball. They were supposed to air on Wednesday night, and this is the problem they're going to have going into All Out. Bad time for them to get bit by those preemptions. But tonight at Daly's Place, where they've been for months and months and months, on the campus of the Jacksonville Jaguars, owned by Tony Khan, they will have between 500 and 800 fans, socially distanced, in a 6,000-seat amphitheater. And so, what do you think of this? This is WWE doing the Thunderdome thing with virtual fans. They've had some trouble with it. People, putting. You're laughing because you're a smart ass comedian, right? You appreciate the idea of a good prank, though, right?
Yeah, it's one of those things where you knew going into Thunderdome there's going to be some flaws. There's going to be, we can't have nice things. It's that theory. So of course there's going to be people, flashing up. What were they flashing up? Chris Benoit pictures and white power symbols. Like I get it, but they've definitely been. I believe and correct me if I'm wrong. I believe they're fanning. They're going to be finding fans who are putting things up that are inappropriate, or there's a lot more regulations of what goes up, or what they could do, which is, something we've both dealt with as comics, when we do virtual shows, is you have select VIP fans that you keep up front. These are people you can trust. That they're not going to do anything inappropriate, and the more newer people coming into Thunderdome, keep them in the back. So if they do fuck up
I also think it's just they're developing a pool of fans they know they can go to that will behave, that they can trust. And you and I have worked around people in television that they do the wrangling for talk shows and different things like that, and so it's a process that takes a little bit longer, and people don't see that because you just see it on TV and you're like, look what they did. Vince, like they want to put memes up and stuff like that. Right. And WWE is the number one target for those type of things, and that's going to be the case. But I wonder what AEW is going to do in terms of showing fans on TV. Are you going to want to show a bunch of fans on TV wearing masks in the crowd? I don't know if that's a great look. Obviously, you want the response of fans, but do you want to show fans with so many empty seats between them? I mean, obviously, maybe a couple of pictures, maybe a few shots, but do you want to linger on that? I don't know if you want to linger on stuff like that.
It's going to be a challenge for the production of the production side of AEW. Like, where do you cut? You have to be smart with your crowd shots. You don't want to do big pan shots. You maybe want to do close-ups. You want to do cutaways when it matters. When it's a big spot or something like that. That's going to be on that, and that's AEW's been having a learning curve this whole year. It's really unfortunate that this COVID stuff happened during their first year being on TV. They've been having to put their feet to the fire and kind of figure all this stuff out. But it's going to be interesting tonight because I do think that, especially with something like AEW, the fans are important. So the fact that they're finally allowing fans in, it's a good night there's going to be some good stuff tonight on the show. So I think we need fans there for it. And hopefully the cameras can cut away to the fans at the right moments. And they space out fans in such a way that it looks like a full arena. That's going to be.
And that's safe. I think at the end of the day, I just think it's got to be as safe as you can get it. I mean, they're not the only wrestling shows. GCW's been running now for a month now. They ran in Indianapolis recently. Okay. They ran in New York, and Warrior Wrestling by us ran on a football field at Marion Catholic High School, and I was told it looked really great. I know Nick Huffman, friend of the show, and Val Capone worked that show, and they worked on commentary. They wore masks the whole time. Buddy of ours, Michael Keefe, went to the show, and he said he had an entire 12-foot, 15-foot area to himself. The entire
time. Spread the arms out.
Yeah, and it was like you have like almost like your own little picnic area. And I was like, oh, it's kind of neat. Like it's so, and I wonder if WWE will look at things like that, if AEW will look at things like that. But I wouldn't blame AEW sticking with Daly's place. I mean, they got dealt an ace in terms of circumstances. I mean, and that's what people said right away. Like, oh, AEW looks even better than Raw or SmackDown now because they're stuck in the Performance Center and they're trying to make the best of it they can. I mean, I didn't hold it against them. The people complained about WrestleMania this year. The novelty was kind of off by June or July, but this year WrestleMania felt different because they had to adapt, and that was 3 weeks into it, And at that point, we were hoping we'd be done with it by the summer, and like we could have shows in the summer.
I still remember it was like, oh, we'll just move everything. All the Mania card will become the SummerSlam card, but we didn't know if we were even going to have that. So
yeah. And there was talk of would SummerSlam become WrestleMania, that type of thing. It obviously didn't happen. But that was that was being way too hopeful. Maybe that's the case. So here we are. AEW live fans. It'll be interesting. They have a bunch of big stuff coming up tonight. I think they'll be hammering a lot of nails here just a few weeks out from All Out, which will be coming up on the 5th. This isn't their last show before All Out, is it? No, they have another week.
They have another one next week.
Yeah. So it'll be that weekend after the weekend of Labor Day. So that's Sunday before Labor Day. Exactly. But these penultimate 2-week out shows tend, in terms of marketing purposes, to be almost more important now in terms of the loop of the way people digest the show than actually the week of show. because there's a lot of people watching on DVR, watching internationally that sometimes get the TV show on a different night. So we do get a big angle tonight with MJF and Jon Moxley, kind of the contract signing showdown. What do you think of that? Moxley and MJF. MJF certainly one of the more over fresh-faced characters, and Jon Moxley is maybe the biggest superstar that AEW has next to Chris Jericho coming over from WWE. This is a big match. I've heard some people get critical of it, not feel as hot about it when it started, and that maybe the political I'm the presidential candidate and elect me to become your AEW champion angle has gotten thin in the tooth, but MJF is such a dynamic performer. I think maybe he could get this over. I do feel like it has cooled. I don't feel like this is as brimming hot angle as it was when it started.
It definitely cooled down. That state of the industry promo from a couple of weeks ago, that was explosive. And I loved the kind of callback to when he was a extra on WWE and Samoa Joe slammed him against the wall, and he did that with the security guard. So I like that he's kind of playing off that stuff. He's making the nice little allusions to WWE, the Stone Cold references and all that stuff. So that's why you're right. It has cooled down, but that's why tonight is going to be important for us to determine whether or not this angle takes it to a next level. You have the showdown, you have the quote unquote contract signing, and they're both great on the mic. So tonight's really going to be important. So I'm excited for it.
It's definitely a clash of styles. Moxley is the modern day Stone Cold, and MJF keeps bringing it up. But MJF is a modern spin in a bunch of different things too in his own way. He's very young. I think a lot of people
24 or something.
Yeah, he's very young. He has an incredible career ahead of him, and just one of the most electric personalities in wrestling. But even he would say, I don't need to have great matches. I don't need to have I don't need to go out there and be violent. And he's almost made it a part of his character. Like, I don't have to have a great match. That's not why I'm here. And all these different things. And what do you think here? Because going in, the presumption is, it's just him building it up and Moxley's going to wreck him. Do they have to make MJF feel like a real guy who could get this belt off him, or is this all smoke and mirrors to get to All Out and Moxley wrecks him? They can go two different paths here. To me, they got to make it seem like MJF can beat Moxley, because it's been fun, the interaction, but it hasn't had that super fight feel.
The super fight feel. I think it's one of those things where I kind of like MJF as the chicken shit heel. Excuse my language. That kind of whiny.
She is. That's all right.
Yeah,
that's all right, man. I get it.
But he's throwing the tantrums. He's doing that kind of whiny thing, and I kind of think that fits his heel persona, because then you can build a story of you want to see Moxley beat him up. So I think that works better with his persona and the way he's been presenting himself, with the kind of political candidate grandstanding on the little platform thing. I think it works better that way, but I can also see your way as well. Maybe you kind of build him up as it's credible, but then it doesn't happen, or you build him up as the whiny heel, and then there's a schmaz finish and he kind of steals the belt. There's always more money in the chase. So I kind of like that.
There is more money in the chase, but it's different when you're doing it with a heel going at an over baby face, right? So, and for me, it's interesting, but it isn't an overwhelming sell. It's weird. Yeah. MJF was so hot, and there's so many different things with the pandemic too that changed too, because I think he was a guy that really benefited from those huge booing crowd reactions and different stuff like that. And
he plays for the crowd. I feel like he has that natural kind of, what do you want to call it?
And who knows, maybe with that 800, 500 fans they have there booing and screaming tonight, you'll feel that difference.
I hope we feel that. I think John is the same way too. I think he, especially in his WWE run, you saw him, he played to the crowd immediately, especially, you listen to when he talked about the storylines he would get from Vince and how he'd have to make, chicken salad out of those bad storylines. It was the crowd that helped him. So I think, right now it's kind of cooled off because of the lack of fans. So hopefully tonight we will see something different. I think both of them will play to those 500, 600 people that are there. And hopefully something goes well.
And other people texting in about different things here with AEW. A few weeks out from All Out, building up a bunch of different things here. We get a tables match tonight. I'm surprised we got this match on this week's AEW. If you're listening on the podcast, you may have already seen it. I was thinking they would hold this out for All Out. Matt Hardy versus Sami Guevara. Of course, Guevara busting him up real bad a few weeks ago on TV and really bloodied Matt Hardy, who's kind of slidden into a more serious lane. We've seen a bunch of different characters from him in the short time he's been in AEW, and this is more just a straightforward version of Matt Hardy heading into this match. I'm surprised they're doing this, but AEW's been fond of just giving you pay-per-view payoffs on television. I think that's the case here. They're moving around different nights. They're not on Wednesday night. They want to retain that audience. They want you to feel like you tuned in for the right reason. WWE's doing the same thing with their preemptions due to NHL hockey next week. They're going to give you this major event. We'll talk about that in a minute. But Hardy and Guevara, what do you think here? How much time do they get? I think they get a solid feature within that first hour to kind of pull you into the second hour.
It's going to be that solid feature in the first hour. Maybe like 15, 20 minutes, maybe. I think it's going to be good. And I kind of like, the story going into this, you had Hardy getting busted up. It was kind of like blurring the lines a little bit of, did he use the wrong chair? I guess that's what the dirt sheets were alluding to, that, he used the wrong chair or whatever. But I think that helps the story, blur the lines. It's fine. So I'm excited. It's also AEW's first table match. I'm excited to see how they show a tables match on AEW with their production level.
So they'll probably have a bunch of different tables. We're going to put a camera inside the table.
I would love that. Maybe does Hardy still use the drones? I want a drone shot of the table being destroyed.
Yeah, he'll have whatever the drones are called now, whatever is a name for his job. So AEW has a bunch of different exciting things. Then we have WWE Payback this Sunday. Now we had SummerSlam last Sunday. It seems like the reviews have settled in across the board, and that this was a fairly well received show. And that a majority of people enjoyed the show overall. I really liked it. I thought it was one of the better WWE pay-per-views of the year. Definitely, probably the best overall, top to bottom, that they've had since around WrestleMania time. I enjoyed Money in the Bank. I like Backlash. Horror Show was a letdown as well, in general, overall. But big things coming out of that. Biggest was Roman Reigns. And Roman Reigns already hot-shotted right into the main event. It'll be him and The Fiend and Braun Strowman in a triple threat this Sunday at Payback. 1 week turnover for a pay-per-view. Kind of a challenging concept, but if you would have told me this 10 years ago, I would have been like, why? Why are you doing that? But we're not in a pay-per-view mode anymore. This is still something that wrestle fans are scratching their head about. But I'm like, look at Netflix. They're doing a Netflix model. They're dropping one big thing. So, the week after Netflix drops a Dave Chappelle special, they're going to give you a new season of a show that you already like to get you keep going, especially if it's month to month. I think most people's subscriptions kind of end at a certain time, or I just got it for SummerSlam. Well, if there's another pay-per-view next week, we'll hang around.
You better stick around. It's smart on their part. You have to think about, yes, there's not a lot of build going into this pay-per-view, but look at the, this triple threat. It's Braun, it's Roman, it's Bray. All three guys have kind of fought before individually, so I think it's one of those matches that doesn't need a ton of build. I think it's fine going into this. I personally think that they're doing the triple threat so that someone can eat the pin. What I'm thinking maybe is Braun takes the pin again, and then they do more Bray and Roman matches going forward. You can do Funhouse Bray versus Roman. You can do Fiend versus Roman. You have so much there. I think maybe, because correct me if I'm wrong, isn't the draft coming up too at some point? So maybe Braun takes the pin so that he goes to Raw. You know what I mean? It could be something.
Yeah,
like that.
I do think Braun takes the pin here. But do they put the belt so quickly on Roman Reigns? Is it something?
I don't know if he should get the belt so quickly. I think there's something to. It would be nice if the Fiend keeps the belt for a little bit. People get to enjoy that. People like the Fiend with the belt previously. He had that nice little custom title that was made at the match.
I hated that thing. It looked awful. But I understood where he had it.
What, $8,000 for a belt? Ooh, that's too much. But
yeah, I know, it's ridiculous. But I understood where he had it. I mean, he's a monster freak. Like, why does he have a championship? Is he even fighting for championships? So it's an interesting scenario, and I'm not against it, but I do want to see what they do with Roman Reigns, because he came out and attacked both these guys at the end of SummerSlam.
Both of these guys, yeah.
And we hadn't seen him in 5 months, and he was a guy who pulled out of WrestleMania for COVID concerns, just had children. And so it was kind of shocking to see him there, and people said, like, is he a heel? Like, is this guy who was super over superhero? Is he now a supervillain? And I think we'll have a better idea of that on SmackDown.
On SmackDown, yeah, we'll find out on SmackDown. Hopefully, he gets a good promo on SmackDown. But here's the thing with Roman: people forget he kind of blurred the lines after when he beat the Undertaker at WrestleMania 33. He's always kind of had that kind of, is he a heel? Is he? What did he say? I'm not a good guy. I'm not a bad guy. I'm just the guy. Like he's always kind of played that line a little bit. But I think we're getting a darker version of Roman, a more cut version of Roman. He looks amazing too. He's definitely been bulking up with this 5 months off. So I am excited.
He looks huge. How about those veneers, dude? Everyone's talking about his big white teeth. Randy Orton trolling him on Instagram, posting some
those trolls.
Family Guy about it.
Yeah. The veneers. He's got those veneers. It looked like some futuristic what was that James Bond villain Jaws? He had like it looked like that a little bit.
Yeah, he looked like Jaws from James. From
a little bit.
I think Kyle is texting in here.
Cornette said that like he looks like a James Bond villain. I can see that from Roman, especially with that T-shirt that he had. I want that T-shirt. What do you think?
That wreck everyone and leave. Yeah, that's a spring break T-shirt if I've ever seen one. Kyle is texting here. Said, would it hurt Bray if he lost the belt and he just won it at SummerSlam? Well, it's a triple threat scenario. So he doesn't have to get pinned to lose the title. But it doesn't help that he won it and then immediately loses it a week later. Does it hurt Reigns if he loses this match? No, I don't think he gets pinned. Braun's eating the pin here, and it's just a matter of how he eats the pin. I do think somehow this parlays into what they have going into September and October, and maybe the Hell in a Cell season. This is something that could get there. But do we have a repeat of the Fiend in the Cell? That was quite the scenario last year. Fans weren't fond of that. So I don't know where you want to go here, but it's interesting. I do think Roman Reigns is a huge character. He's a big reason why people were talking about SummerSlam. He's a big reason why the show is trending. I think the interest, he wasn't on Monday Night Raw, but I think he was a big reason why Monday Night Raw did well, because it was just an overall interest in WWE coming out of their biggest show of the year, one of their biggest summer shows. And I'll be interested what the numbers look like for SmackDown this week and what that looks like. SmackDown is now still week to week the most watched pro wrestling show across the board, and I wonder what that number will be like this week. I mean, Raw this week did around 2 million. NXT numbers came in. I don't know the exact number. I was waiting for somebody to send that over. I know it's probably out there. Okay. But it wasn't particularly great. But we'll talk about NXT here in just a second.
Coming out of the takeover, yeah, it's a little low for them. I'm excited for the SmackDown. It's funny. Last week I watched the Thunderdome. I was working in a VFW hall, so I got to watch wrestling in a VFW hall on TV. So it looked good. Were
you doing a comedy show?
No, I was just doing some work out there. It's always
just working.
I was telling jokes to a pile of pipes outside as I dragged them and put them in a dumpster. But we had the TV going. Not doing shows just yet. But here's another thing we didn't think about. Alexa Bliss did not factor into the main event of SummerSlam, even though
a lot of fans get upset about that. Because she was on TV and she was kind of playing like the damsel in distress scenarios, trying to get Braun to not be a monster, fighting a real monster in Bray, and they're kind of teasing like Bray like casting a spell on her, and a lot of fans were really into
or something.
A lot of fans were really into that and responded to it. Someone texted me the number here. Thank you so much I got some information here from some people in the chat that NXT did 824,000. That's a great number, by the way.
For them.
Yeah, that's but I mean in general, that's a really good number
in the modern TV landscape too.
We'll talk about NXT in a little bit, but just kind of covering different loose ends here from WWE going into Payback this weekend. I wonder if Alexa plays a role on SmackDown. The TV audience has definitely responded to it. I was surprised they didn't utilize Alexa at SummerSlam, and some allusions were made to her role or lack thereof on social media.
Mm-hmm.
And she kind of tweeted it out curiously and got a response from someone who just left WWE, apparently because they just wanted to get out of WWE and felt it was the time, in one Renee Paquette. So she tweeted something along the lines a few days ago of kind of frustrated, need to know my worth. And some people took, and it was big name superstars put that out there, people know what they're talking about. And the assumptions are all over the place that she is upset with her role in WWE and felt maybe there was something there, and then maybe some backpedaling. We can't put words in her mouth. But I mean, I'm going to take the words that she said. Definitely doesn't seem happy. And this is a big superstar. Alexa Bliss, don't get it twisted. Twisted Bliss is over. Like over. There is an online fan base that loves her, that are really into her.
That are disappointed she's not single anymore.
If there was a Venn diagram of people that like anime and like wrestling, like Alexa Bliss is in that middle area. Like they love themselves, Alexa Bliss, and internationally she has a big following. So I was surprised here. I was surprised that we didn't see her involved. Some people texted and said I was expecting Alexa to be involved in the match as well. But, I mean, with Roman being there at the end, it made sense just to focus on Roman making the interruption. And it worked,
It looked great when he showed up. Yeah, it's one of those things where Alexa should have been involved in the final match. What I will say though is it's probably another one of WWE's like last minute booking decisions they like to do. They like to change things up at the last minute. But maybe that's what Payback is for. Maybe she plays a factor in the Payback match in some way. Maybe she costs Braun the match on Sunday. We will see.
It'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to say the least. So as we kind of move along here with things in wrestling, I'm excited for the way that NXT has pivoted, just like AEW's had to pivot with these preemptions. NXT will have one next week. They will not air on Wednesday the 2nd. They will air on the 1st. And this is an interesting scenario because AEW's had a lot of these we've known. I wonder, the pattern of ratings haven't really hit them as much as I thought it would. That Saturday night show did pretty well. Did what the numbers they would do on Wednesdays they did on Saturday.
The Saturday show was also following the playoffs, right? If I'm not mistaken.
It was delayed about 20 minutes after a playoff game, so they had to wait to start. So that was.
They didn't air on a tape delay. They aired live with the delay.
I'm not exactly certain of that. Okay. And I don't know if anything was cut from the show in terms of time either. But I do know they were supposed to air about 6:05 Eastern time, and they ended up airing about 6:30. So it's a quarter hour ratings there, different things like that. And
this might be a contrarian opinion, but I almost think that them following the playoffs, which may not happen as much now because of reasons that the playoffs may be not going on as much, but I think it almost helps AEW to follow a big time thing like the NBA. You get that kind of rollover from, people leave the game on and then AEW starts playing and people are like, oh, wrestling? Yeah, I remember when Rodman faced Malone back in the day, like an NBA fan. So look, if it brings new eyes to the product, I think anything helps them right now is perfect. So I almost think that having a lead in like the NBA helps them. So that's what I'm concerned about now is, because the playoffs might be quote unquote not happening as much now. What is AEW's lead in now? That's the
I mean, they've already been yo-yoed around enough with the playoffs as it is. And it wasn't like, oh, we're preempting you to just this one night for the next few weeks. It wasn't like you're just going to be on Thursdays. It was, they weren't on last Wednesday, then they were on Sunday. Now they're not going to be on Wednesday, they're going to be on Thursday. And there might be another one where they're on Saturday. I don't know the exact dates, but it's going to go on until like almost the week after All Out. So it's right around one of the bigger pay-per-views of the year, and that's a tough time to have this happen. And just the timing of it. I mean, what time is good for it, right? But with the pandemic, we wouldn't have NBA playoffs around this time of year. Now, obviously, if you're following the news, a lot of social justice issues, a lot of people very, very upset with a shooting in Kenosha, Wisconsin, involving the police and a man in front of his children. Very, very upset issue. And this has sparked many, many NBA players to prompt the idea of a possible boycott. There's been mixed words about that. Some people saying the boycott isn't exactly going to happen, as more just the games are going to be delayed. They're going to play the games. It's just a matter of when they're going to play the games. And some teams have left the NBA bubble in Orlando, where they're all supposed to stay and finish the season. And so is this going to delay? How long would that be? The thing is, the word I heard most recently, before we went on air today, is that it could delay the games. And then you have a quarantine period where you have to bring those guys in and retest them and wait to do all that again. So how long it'll delay the games, not exactly clear. Jay Feliciano, big friend of the show, and certainly an industry insider with some knowledge here, with the NBA boycott continuing tonight, do we get AEW starting on time tonight? I think so. I think they do start on time. I don't think. I wonder if they get bumped back to maybe Wednesdays if that happens. If the games are affected in the next 24 hours or so, maybe by the time you hear this, if you're listening or watching on demand, I could see that we kind of know that schedule, and I wonder if AEW gets yo-yoed a whole lot with that. Now the thing is with WWE, they're on NBC Universal. They're dealing with NHL hockey. It seems like NHL is going to power ahead. They're north of the border. They have those players in a bubble. A lot of those players have committed to a bubble. Some people say they shouldn't have games.
Bubble commitment,
I could see NHL delaying some games for a while. But I don't see those players leaving the bubble. The players leaving the bubble strikes me more as that's going to take a lot longer because you're going to have to bring them back in. You have to quarantine them for 14 days just to be. You have to do all those above the board protocol things that they've done with this bubble that they spent time to make sure is right and test everyone. I think the NHL guys will stay north of the border in Edmonton and Toronto. That's just the way it looks like now. Don't know for sure. Now, could this affect WWE? No, AEW is the one that really has to monitor it. So,
what it might affect is maybe we get AEW possibly, and this is possible that AEW goes back to Wednesday, WWE or NXT at least stays on Tuesday. So in that way, at least they run unopposed. In that way, it might be better for the fan who wants.
Now that has been coming up here. Is this preemption thing came up? So we get into this. So the ratings war has been delayed. Right? We don't get our ratings war. That people take probably too seriously, and I take seriously just enough. And so the Thursday show tends to be a popular show because people want to come on and be like, "Yeah, look at you, McMahon, suck it, yeah,
suck it, Stanford,
yeah, you billionaire who built an entire genre of entertainment on $1 billion empire, yeah." Yeah, it's like when someone says their movie got more viewers than a Steven Spielberg movie. It's like, no, movies exist because Steven Spielberg made movies. So calm down. So we don't get this, and there's already been some speculation. We kind of touched on this last night. NXT will have this big show, Super Tuesday. Can't air on Wednesday. Hockey playoffs, right? And they're going to give us a huge match, a match I think that is as big as anything you could put on pay-per-view, with Balor versus Johnny Gargano versus Tommaso Ciampa versus Adam Cole. 4-way, 60-minute Iron Man match. Not just a 4-way match. So I said like a 4-way match already. It's like, that's really cool. Oh, 4-way match, 50 minutes, 20 minutes on TV. That's really cool. No, you're giving me 4 super popular wrestlers with NXT fans, and you're going to get 60 minutes, and you're going to get wrestling big time, play at all stakes, and you're going to get a new NXT champion as Karrion Kross had to vacate the title due to shoulder injury. A negative quickly became a positive. I've never seen a quicker, more positive response to an NXT match in terms of when it was announced that even the most loyal, I'm AEW, I'm with All Elite, I'm only with Elite, but those fans will still look at NXT cards. And I saw some AEW fans online saying, that's a damn good match. That's a damn good match. I may have to watch that. And here's the thing, guys. I've said it before. You do not owe your allegiance. You're not working in this, okay? If Pratik and I worked for AEW or WWE, we would have some allegiance, and I think you would understand that. Yeah. Our allegiance is to our time and what is most entertaining to us. Me, I want all wrestling to work because I cover wrestling, and I want all wrestling. I want every show to have millions and millions of viewers.
Exactly.
I know what reality is.
You want the industry booming every week. Like, you know, what's good for, and I'm sure the performers themselves on both companies are, what's good for WWE is good for AEW. What's good for AEW helped WWE, though their pay scale went up because of it. I don't know why people are, so caught up in the division. It's kind of like improv and stand-up.
It's a very, very good comparison for you. So it is an odd scenario here. We'll get this show. It'll be interesting number. I think NXT had a very strong rating here. That is about 100,000 less. Not too bad. Not too bad of a drop. And also there was a bunch of news at night with everything too. And so that's the take. And so it'll be interesting here. Now, if NXT does really well on a Tuesday and you're NBC Universal, And you see this on USA Network, and those ratings come out Wednesday, and those overnight numbers are really good. And you kind of look at a pattern, and you're like, why are we doing this ratings for?
Yeah.
When we could do Tuesday nights, and we could get maybe near 1 million people to watch the show, and or 1 million more in overnight viewership. Mind you, like I always tell you guys, overnight viewership is just so selective of a number. It's not. It is not like it does not define a show.
Not anymore.
Definitely not anymore. Because you and I have done the pitch packages and different things for TV shows, and we had to send in, and it's like, what type of show do you think you could write for 1 million people? What type of show do you think you could write for 2 million? And we've had to like take this class. We're like, what was that? So
precious 18 to 24 demographic, and what are you doing for them? It doesn't
give us something that people in their 50s like. Yeah. So if that is something that WWE looks at, and NXT looks at, and NBC Universal looks at, you're gonna say, "Oh, we drove them off Wednesday nights." No, they just chose a night where they don't have to compete. See, exactly. They didn't war. They just walked away. They left the game in the halftime. You know what I mean?
I also wonder, was the Wednesday night kind of time shift, was that made by the McMahon family just to kind of like, let's stick it to AEW, let's create that Wednesday night war? I can't imagine NBC Universal was fully on board with that. They're just going to look at the numbers straight.
No, I think, NBC Universal was seeing what WWE did with Fox in terms of adding extra programming for them, and how the backstage show is going to be there, and how, but I mean, hey, that was a show I think that's really a victim of the pandemic too.
The backstage was great, and they've been doing watch-alongs too, where they had like the SummerSlam '92 was great.
And WWE can continue to have those secondary programs with Fox and different stuff like that. But it was also like, there's a desire here. Look at what AEW is going to do if we can get to the market before they can. And yes, the WWE put NXT on Wednesdays to undercut AEW. I'm not denying that. What I am saying is, if you're AEW, your entire premise of marketing was, we're not going to be WWE. Like, we're all but saying WWE. We're talking about WWE. We're ranking it. We're giving you some wrestlers you saw in WWE, but we're not WWE. We have the budgets at and so many of the fans wanted that. They wanted something that would stick its nose at WWE and look and feel big. They're doing all the things that TNA Impact wanted to do for years, and make references and take big shots at the big company and all those different things. And here we are, a couple months into this. Everyone says AEW's whooping them. In some cases, they absolutely have. That first night they came out was huge. It's the biggest game changer. AEW has changed the industry in a big way. The way wrestlers have changed, but the pandemic has changed everything. I really think it's neutralized everything. And they were on a really, really great pattern. And I want AEW to win. Everyone thinks I'm like horny and I've decided this. But I don't mind like saying like, pump the brakes here, guys. Like, you can't think about this in a way that isn't right. Jamoswit Pwan texts in, says the in-ring work rate, oh man, people are saying work rate now, of AEW needs to get better, in my opinion. The storylines and the simple sense of storylines is there, to which I have to move over here to a different screen, definitely makes it much more interesting than WWE. All right, so he's enjoying overall what AEW is doing here, but thinks they need better wrestling in the ring and storyline. I would flip that. I would say the wrestling is fine. They have some of the best wrestlers in the world, but their storylines are kind of all over the place. I know the comparisons get made here between AEW and NXT, but when they're not on the same night, don't you like that too? That's my thing. I can't
watch 4 hours of wrestling in one night. Because that happens is one of the shows I watch and I do highlights for the other one, or I go to WrestleZone and read the summaries for something. Yeah.
I think I've talked to you about this before too. You literally described that. Like, I'll pick one show and then I'll go to the results page, or Linville Porter's writing those, and I'll refresh all night and kind of find out what they're doing. Yes. And then I'll go and watch those clips afterwards.
Depending on what they're doing, then I'll watch, or the YouTube highlights. Whoever like cuts up those like 40-minute highlights.
There's more people watching wrestling on YouTube. Maybe some nights than watching on TV. Yeah. Every kid I know that watches wrestling, they tell me they watch it first on YouTube.
Yeah.
So when people bring that up to me, I'm like, well, then WWE's got more people watching. Because if you look at their YouTube numbers, they're through the roof.
And WWE's better bootleggers who are pretty
Yeah, you're right. Gotta leave the bootleggers. Can't have them there. So we've covered a bunch of different topics here. Do want to cover this as well. Wade Barrett was on WWE NXT commentary this week. An interesting addition there.
Yes.
Mauro Ranallo, we don't know his status with WWE. I assume he's still with the company. I haven't heard anything else. I think that he is. I don't want anyone else running at that. A lot of people have been asking us in the last few days, is he done with the company? No, I just think he's on a break for whatever reason. I knew he wasn't available for TakeOver.
Okay.
And so my assumption is that he'll be back at some point soon. They still have Beth Phoenix doing the show remotely. And on color commentary, they added Wade Barrett this week. We were told initially at WrestleZone that this would be a 1 week thing. And then we found out, obviously on air, like everyone else, that he will return next week.
It was a great little thing where he's just like, oh, by the way, I'll be here next week as soon as the title match is announced.
I've got to be here for that next week. I can't miss that match. So we get that, and he'll be with them on Wednesday for that big fatal 4-way match. What do you think of this? Wade Barrett back in the fold with WWE. I mean, this was a very fun, pleasant surprise to see
very nice
Monday going into the weekend.
Adds a couple people to, a couple people are watching because of that. He's got a great voice for commentary. I remember watching the tag team match yesterday between Breezango and Imperium, and his voice kind of added that extra level to it. So I think he's great for it, especially with Mauro being out. We don't know what's going on with him. I hope whatever he's dealing with, I hope he gets to come back soon. So this is a nice little substitution, And again, NXT, dealing with the cards as they fall, trying to make these last minute changes based on what's going on. Karrion Kross has to relinquish the title. They give us the fatal 4-way. Mauro can't be there, so we get Wade Barrett. They're good at making these last minute substitutions. So
they're definitely pivoting a lot harder than I've seen them pivot in the past few months. And I think pivoting is an underrated thing with us as wrestling fans. Think about this: we're still getting a show.
Yes,
I mean, think how many things that just flat out stopped. For months and months and months on end. Like wrestling kept going.
It's going.
And you would think if WWE stopped doing any live in-ring wrestling shows, that would be NXT. Like they would just they just kept doing it. I do think NXT suffers from not being in the Thunderdome. I would have liked to see what it would look like in there. But I understand. I get it. They want to maybe just hold things off and develop.
You want to hold things off for a little bit. And I think for right now, it kind of works with the, it was funny yesterday, Breezango, they won the titles and they're kind of banging on the glass, going up to the commentator booth. Like those two guys knew how to work that kind of intimate room. It's like those stand-ups that prefer the intimate stage as opposed to a bigger arena, so they knew what they were doing. So good.
I love adaptability now. In these times, the people that have been able to, Asuka is a great example of that.
Oh yeah,
where she's really made her entrances so much bigger and really makes everything about connecting with the camera, and has worked things like that. Bailey and Sasha have done that as well too.
Oh, they know how to work the camera.
I mean, some people in AEW that are doing some really good stuff. I love what Jeff Hardy's done. Matt Hardy has done in AEW in terms of the way he's been able to really go as wide as he can, and he do those big wide shots with him that don't feel like it's an empty space. So when you have people that can do stuff like that and pivot really good, it's strong here. I know we're getting into the weeds here with questions and different things like that. Retribution. Want to cover a couple of different Retribution rumors here before we sign off for the night. Retribution is the Antifa inspired. They're not saying Antifa.
No. This is
the riotous group that interrupted the end of this week's Raw. They did not show up at SummerSlam. We expect something on SmackDown. They haven't touched NXT, so a lot of people assume they're from NXT. We have heard speculation that not for sure, but a lot of people feel that Dominik Dijakovic, the big 7-footer from NXT, is one of the members. Some people have theorized that Carmella is also a member. But once Roman Reigns showed up at SummerSlam, people said, Roman Reigns got to be in that group. He has to be in that group. He wants Retribution. And what do you think of this? What is your latest speculation and guessing who's under those ski masks?
Who's under those? And we know WWE, they love to tease us with mysteries for years on end sometimes. So here's what I'm thinking. I think maybe Roman isn't behind the ski masks, but I think he might have some allegiance to them. I think that might be interesting, what goes on there. I think he's definitely going to have some alignment, kind of like back in the day when a certain CM Punk was, maybe he was aligned with the Shield, maybe he wasn't. They teased that for a long time too. So maybe
he was supposed to be.
He was supposed to be. And then they changed the plans. Somebody posted a meme today where they showed when Retribution first was sawing up SmackDown a couple weeks ago, and then the Retribution people now and how they've changed in size all of a sudden because they're clearly recasting them.
Yeah.
I was thinking that it might be, some of our more some of those wrestlers who were released as part of the mass furloughs. We were thinking that a couple people might be part of that, but I think you're right. I think it's leaning more towards now being some NXT people. It could be Djokovic. I wouldn't mind seeing. I was hoping at one point it might have been Ciampa as one of the people.
There was a lot of people that thought it was going to be Ciampa as well, but now we know he's going to be on NXT. Turned heel, laid out Jake Atlas, and
that was
did the stretcher job.
What do you call that catapult move where he like hit the guy and the neck hit the fucking like?
Oh yeah, when he hit the under part of the ring, it was brutal.
Yeah, nasty.
Brutal. It was nasty. Nasty. Tommaso Ciampa is very good at being cold and callous, isn't he?
I also wonder, because we don't know when the draft is coming, like, is this fatal four-way going to be like, hey, this is the last chance you're going to see these four in the ring for a while? Like, maybe a couple of them maybe going to the main roster.
That's a great thing. I mean, they haven't really announced a time frame for it. Some people speculate that'll happen sometime in September. And I do think we'll get an announcement of that in the next week or two of what those dates are. NXT has to be a part of it.
It has to. Absolutely. 100%.
I could see one of those four guys moving. For sure, at least one of those four, and I do see
him just because he just got to NXT. This year.
Who knows? I mean, who knows? It'd be interesting who moves. Obviously, a lot of people think Adam Cole is the guy who's on the move, the breakup Undisputed Era, but we'll see. I'm excited for a lot of different things with NXT. I think, and WWE in general overall feels a lot more interesting than it did a few weeks ago. And I think SummerSlam was a part of it.
Yeah,
and I felt that watching Raw was a bit underwhelming because it felt so hot coming out of SummerSlam, but I'm okay with it. And I think the things they're doing with like kind of like almost a pay-per-view to follow up a pay-per-view just a week later is interesting. That whole show was built on, all right, we got Roman Reigns, you're going to get Roman Reigns. So they're doing some interesting stuff here. Overall, excited for it.
I'm excited too.
I do want to remind you some fun things we have going on in the podcast feed right now. Scorpio Sky from AEW did an exclusive interview with our very own Dominic Dijakovic. Dominic Dijakovic. We have Dominic D'Angelo. Too many D's. You guys see how fast I talk? Yeah. Our very own Dominic D'Angelo speaking with Scorpio Sky about his career in AEW, his aspirations to be a Grand Slam champion, and so much more. That exclusive interview is available now in the podcast feed. Go ahead and subscribe. Apple Podcasts. Available as well on Spotify, and we have it up on our video channels on Facebook and YouTube as well. I do want to remind you, the Nature Boy gave us an exclusive chat as well about his upcoming online gambling venture, which is very, very exciting.
That's awesome.
Yeah, of course. I mean, if anyone's going to have an online gambling slot machine, it's going to be the Nature Boy. You want to go to Vegas online, you do it with the Nature Boy. And so that's a great thing. And of course, we have this great interview. If you're a fan of old school wrestling, Terry Funk gave us 45 minutes plus. Terry Funk, a legendary figure, telling stories, going up and down the road, and Dominic D'Angelo really crushing it. Also, Fridays we will drop a couple episodes of our exclusive, just talking about AEW show, Two Dynamite Dudes with Attitudes, the D'Angelo brothers. So Dominic is all over it. I have to definitely mention that. And I will be back with you. We'll be doing some post-show content for Paybacks. So just make sure your notifications are on for the people that just like the live stuff. You follow us on YouTube, you like, and then you have to turn your notifications on the channel. Facebook, you have to like and you have to follow. Mr. Zuckerberg would like you to do that extra thing for more data that they can mine on everyone, right? Pratik, let's talk about you, buddy. What's going on with you? What projects do you have in the cooker?
So I do a show called Hash It Out every Friday night. We've been off for a couple weeks, but we're coming back. We should have a show this Friday. Normally it was an Instagram live show, but what I'm going to be doing is I've been pre-recording a lot of different interviews with comics and other cool people of interest. So we've been putting that on IGTV and also be putting that on my YouTube page, which is youtube.com/Pratik Comedy. So my Twitter handle is Daily Pratik. So that's my first name, Prateek, and then youtube.com/Pratik Comedy is my YouTube channel. My Instagram is @Pratik Comedy. So again, my first name followed by the word comedy. So that's in the cooker. I co-host 2 virtual mics every week. One is on Sundays, co-hosted by Mark Hornbeck. That's actually his show. It's called Fun Simulation 2000. It's a great little mic show that you can check out. Mark Hornbeck started 6 years ago at Reed's Local Tap.
You can watch it. You can watch it on YouTube, on Twitch. I've done it. It's really, really fun. I know some people listen to the show and say, "Oh, Kevin, you do comedy. Where can you see your comedy stuff?"
There you go.
We kind of reserve that putting out a bunch of comedy content until we can like put out an album. But if you want to see comics like try their stuff and see us riff with each other, and me and Pratik tell stories about a bar that we used to love to go to and see all this crazy shit happen at, go check out Fun Simulations on Sunday nights. If there isn't a pay-per-view on, or maybe the pay-per-view isn't that great, and you want to click the channel or have this on in the background, this is a great way to do it. So definitely go check it out.
I've seen you like share the stream on your page. So there you go. Too.
I will be busy tomorrow. I will be in prime time for 101 WKQX, the alternative rock station of the nation. You can catch me filling in for the great Tim Virgin, who's on vacation, and I will be on air 3 to 7 p.m. Central Time tomorrow on 101 WKQX, available on TuneIn and iHeartRadio in the Chicagoland area, Northwest Indiana, Wisconsin's 101.1 FM. We're doing some really cool stuff building up to the day after Labor Day with the launch of History of Alternative. All the music that makes you feel like you're 13 or 14 again. When you could wear Jinko jeans and it was socially acceptable, and you could go to the Hot Topic at the mall. We're gonna have all that music and a whole lot more. Gadzooks. We're going to Gadzooks. We're gonna get a Jenny McCarthy poster at Gadzooks.
Let's do it.
And so definitely go and check it out. 101wkqx.com. Stream it anywhere in the world. Available on your smart speakers as well. Simply say enable the 101 WKQX skill. You can listen to us at home. Thanks for supporting the show. Once again, share the link. If you don't want to share the link, so many people are sick of you sharing wrestling stuff on your Facebook page. Tag your friends in the comments below. If you're watching on demand, go ahead and shoot your wrestling questions off. All right. So we will be here. Bunch of free content. Remember, no Patreon. No Patreon, dude. It is free. Thank you to the James Espanto, Fernando, Taguais. Thank you to the Shah Jawaz. Thank you to all the people that are watching the show, people checking out in Australia, people checking out the show in India. I know we have people checking out the show in Turkey, New York City, a bunch of different people from England, a lot of people all over the world on the virtual couch of wrestling. And I am so thankful for your viewership and your support. It's a challenging time. There's a bunch of different content you can check out. So you're checking out the show, and I am thankful for it. And that is why I remind you, this is how we end the show, Pratik, is we can bitch and complain about ratings and Vince and how come they won't let me put on my no vaccines t-shirt on the Thunderdome. People need to know that Bill Gates is trying to create clones of Hulk Hogan. People are gonna say all that crazy
talk about it, Starcast.
You can't clone these 25-inch pythons. You can't grow those in a petri dish. And so listen, all right, behave yourself on the Thunderdome screens.
Yeah,
behave yourself in the wrestling chats. Invite the kids into the wrestling. Invite your friends. Invite the women. Everyone's welcome at the wrestling party. We're all going to be there. And remember, enjoy wrestling.